for the City of Edina. We are meeting in the City Hall Community Room, and I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'm asking our clerk, Sharon Allison, to call the roll.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Lister.
Here.
Mayor Hudlin.
Here. We have one topic for discussion tonight, and that is something that we've, what do we call it, the parking lot? It's been sitting in parking or along the curb.
Idling.
For about, I don't know, 6-8 months, and we're going to start talking about it again here. Cahill District Area Plan, and this is for discussion purposes only. Scott's going to, Neil's going to lead off the conversation. Then we've got both Addison Lewis, our Community Development Coordinator, and Kerry Teague, our Director, with us this evening too. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Good evening. What we would like to do tonight is really just resume the discussion that the council's had around the Cahill District Plan. We'd like to see if we get to a point of common ground that we can move this forward so that we can shift mental gears and logistical gears onto the Lincoln Drive, Lincoln Londonderry, or what is it? Lincoln Londonderry, what we call it. That's going to take a lot of energy from staff, and we just want to make sure we can try to get this one done before we move on to the next one. So to do that, we wanted to give you a quick review kind of where we left things, and then start the discussion to see if there are some areas of consensus here that would allow us to move this forward. Addison and Kerry and I have been talking about this for a couple of months. This date happened to open up from another subject, so here we are.
All right, thank you, Scott. So yeah, as Scott mentioned, it's been a while, so I'll start with just a little bit of a refresher. So the Cahill District was first identified in Edina's 2008 and 2018 comprehensive plans as an area that we should take a closer look at. So it was added to the Planning Commission's work plan in 2021 to do the small area plan. There was a 12-member work group that was formed, and then a 16-month process that ensued. So that process included a robust public engagement component that included 13 working group meetings, 3 community-wide workshops, focus groups with property owners, businesses. We had a business survey that was distributed throughout the business community. We had developer roundtable sessions to get some feedback from the development community to hear about kind of what opportunities there might be. We gathered feedback through Better Together Edina, and then also through our public hearing process as well. We also met with a number of the agency stakeholders you see listed on the screen. So the plan that was presented to you, just some of the highlights, largely preserved the industrial core. That was something we heard overwhelmingly that was very important. It created a new neighborhood mixed use area in the northeast corner. It improves multimodal connections through the district that are largely non-existent today. It enhances the public realm to try to make it more attractive. It illuminates a lot of the stormwater management challenges that we have and encourages us to kind of continue working on addressing those. And then it advances numerous climate action plan goals as well. So since the small area plan is technically an amendment to the comprehensive plan, it requires a 4/5 vote in order to approve. So the last time this was in front of you was August 15th, 2023. And at that meeting, a motion to authorize staff to submit the draft plan to the Metropolitan Council failed on a 2-3 vote. So we're here tonight to kind of talk about next steps, what you might like to see. We see a few options here. So number one would be to reconsider the existing plan as is, or maybe with some minor changes. We could bring that back relatively easily. Option 2 might be if there are changes you'd like to see to the existing plan, direct us to make those. We can do that, and then would likely go back through and hold new public hearings. Option 3 would be take no action right now, and we revisit this as part of the 2028 comprehensive plan, which will already be starting up here in 2026. And I'll say here too that if we do go with options 1 or 2, that doesn't mean that we can't also revisit it again when we update the comprehensive plan. So if there's a feeling that there are things lacking in this plan, or that maybe it doesn't go as far as some of you would like, one way to look at it is it's a step, and we have another opportunity to look at it again in just a couple years. So with that, I'll stop and turn it back to council for questions and discussion.
I know what's hanging me up on approving it is a very specific rezoning. And I don't know if we can get to where we see the, what, it's not on that image. Do you have the image of the proposed? It was in the staff presentation of the changes that would have to be made to the comprehensive
Yep,
plan.
so here,
Yeah,
it's these
that's
Ohms
right
Lane
there.
one, right?
And, I mean, I almost want to get up and do my little thing. My problem is that Ohms Avenue and, rezoning to office residential is, I think, a mistake, and we need to preserve the parcels that go to the cul-de-sac on Ohms so that they remain industrial. And the reason for that is you can't exit off on 77th. There's this, the river goes by, or that little stream or whatever, and provides a really neat break between what would be industrial and what is the existing condominium complex. And I think, the first slide you showed, you said preserving industrial was so important. And it is so important. And I think if that gets switched to office residential, we're gonna just get purely residential. And it doesn't make sense in terms of the infrastructure that's there. And the other thing is, I feel like we're losing so much of our industrial land. And you look at the history of industry in Edina, and you also think about what could be with the, now you see AI coming on and all of that. And, we talk a lot about housing in Edina, and we do need to have housing in Edina. We also need to have well-paying jobs in Edina. And I think if we could try to imagine that as a site where it could be a very attractive parcel for some corporation for light industrial, I think that would be absolutely great. And I also think the infrastructure, Ohms and that cul-de-sac, really is not geared toward adding residential use right there. So that's my hang up. And I still have that hang up.
That last point is an interesting one, having just been through the Londonderry sewer analysis. What is the situation over there with respect to capacity?
With respect to
At the end of the cul-de-sac there on Holmes,
yeah, with
having housing there.
for the sewer, there's capacity improvements that are kind of underway or planned that should address the sewer capacity issue for the entire Cahill district by 2025.
But it's also on floodplain area, and so you can't really do a huge amount right there. So, and if everybody caught that article, it was the day you and I met about, the amount of apartments that are going in the western suburbs, and we have more already teed up. I really think, we need to hold the ground on preserving industrial land for the future. It's really good to have a healthy balance of land use. And and the thing is, I have worked light industry, the Donaldson Company, and then also out in Plymouth. And when you can be somebody who is working, and usually I was doing the little, word processing stuff, and you can take a break and you can be on a walking path, it's not just for apartments, but that really makes a working situation and environment a much healthier one. You can take your lunch break and go for a walk, you can bike to work. All of that is really important. So I kind of want to push that.
So I think my biggest concern, and we can go back and watch the video too, right? It maintains the same of this plan to me feels like, let's keep Cahill the way that it is. Let's make maybe some slight improvements. Let's do a little bit of stuff, but like for the most part, let's keep it the same. And I don't feel that it would have been identified as an area for a small area or an area plan, district plan in 2008 and in 2018 if the intention was to keep it the same. And so what I think is missing is that big idea, the so what, the why are we doing all of this? What can this be? And that's the part of it that I would want to potentially align on one of these 4 scenarios, but then bring it a couple of steps further and say, here is a site or an area where we have a very specific vision and idea of what it could be.
So kind of riffing off that, I feel like when we're going off to the National League of Cities next week, and one of the first things I noticed when I went the first time was how much time we spent talking about jobs and economic development. And here in Edina, we don't talk about that much. But I feel like that was something that was kind of missing. I was jaw-dropping number of jobs in this district. And to me, that is like the jewel in the crown of the whole Cahill district, are the jobs. But they're the jobs of today. And we didn't talk about what the jobs of tomorrow are and what the workers of tomorrow are gonna want. So 2 things. One is, what has the CHIPS Act opened up in terms of industries? And I know Bloomington has been putting a lot of time and energy into trying to bring some high-tech jobs to Bloomington. And they've got a very different set of parameters than we do, but I was missing that. And to Kate's idea of looking at the future, what are workers of the future going to want? Are they going to want a 15-minute city where they can work and shop and live all in the same place? And if, is light industry or industry of any kind going to be, because we've got like engineering firms there. And there was not any discussion about what are the jobs, the workers, and the industries of the future going to be. And that was a big, that to me is what the key of the whole thing is. This is a job center, but what's the job center of 20 years gonna look like? The same, or does it need to change in order to address those needs?
And I think that that's something that can be built into and evolved into that big idea. When you have, let's pretend it's gonna be some type of technology industry, is there an opportunity, if there is additional housing, and the other side to that is we always hear about the schools, and yes, we would have to engage the school district and all of that, but could we have like a STEM magnet school that's working in collaboration with some high tech that would be in that area? And something that like we as a community want to see and want to invest in, and makes this a shining gem across the city, and not right now what it is. It's kind of a industrial zone that not very many people use during the day, right? Like you go there if you work there, but that's it. And so I'm looking to draw people there, invigorate it, bring some life to it. And I do think, you mentioned the 15-minute city, that is what I think a lot of people are looking for. And so how can we tie that into an area like this?
And I just don't know, I love the idea of integrating education into that. It's such an Edina thing, right? But I just don't have any, I'm completely blind as to what jobs of the future are. So I just have a feeling, but I don't have any data to draw from.
Yeah, so your question of, do we wait? I actually kind of lean that way, because I can tell you what I think we should do, which is probably more aligned with Kate. I always thought this would be an awesome opportunity for a smart city concept. So, which I think is like a hybrid or a little bit of B, or between C and D. So you're kind of blending the edges. You could live in that space. So it's mixed use. It's got some commercial in there. It's got tech jobs. So the gig, you have space for more of the gig economy type jobs. And then you have some mix of like workforce, housing, more housing affordability, whether it's in the district or around the edges or something like that, is what I think about. And The one I use the example of is the one in Austria that was built on an old World War II airstrip. And it's got apartments, it's got a school, it's got movie theater, it's got restaurants, and people take the train into the city, and then when they come there, that it's got everything that they need. And it's a mix of ownership, rental, kind of everybody lives together, it's a community. That's what's in my head. But when you ask the 3 questions, I don't think I've talked to folks in Cahill, and the folks I've talked to have just really just said, nothing's been done here in years. We'd like to see this area developed. And so to me, it begs actually following the process and having more input to decide what it needs to be. I generally don't believe in the concept of when we say preserve industrial. I believe, and this may be similar, but it's creating space that's dynamic so that we can keep up with the changes on the industrial side, right? So whether it's the gig economy, like we're not gonna have plants over there in the long term, I don't think. And so I think it's being smart about what are the right infrastructure resources we need to have in there so that we can modify as we go. And if a certain kind of business wants to come in, we have the infrastructure to support that. And so I've always thought about this as more of a blended concept, and it would be is it the only place we could do something like that smart city concept? It's like you got lots of pieces in there to make that happen, and you've got easy access to the corridors, right, to make that happen. But do the residents want that? I don't know. If it was a decision of one, that's what I would be leaning towards doing. But I think that leans me towards maybe there is some interim step to gather more information, but it is going through the full comprehensive process.
So my hesitation in that is that we did a full district plan, and we had a lot of input, and we had some really passionate volunteers who I think had some of these ideas that they wanted to see integrated. I also...
What, are you pushing back on waiting the year?
I'm pushing back on doing it again. The same thing that we just did.
Okay. I was under the impression though that we were doing that. Are we not? Did I misinterpret 3?
Option 3 would be to wait 2 years and probably do a new plan.
Okay.
So like options,
Sorry, as part of the bigger comprehensive plan.
Some of these concepts could be, this could be the launching pad, because there are some innovative ideas in there, just not, doesn't get real specific, but it's honing in on some of those specifics in the next step.
Okay. All right, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, appreciate the clarification. But I got to see, maybe even more so firsthand, some of the experiences where the first couple of sessions we were able to ideate, and we came up with some big ideas and had a lot of really good discussion that then I didn't feel like our consultant partners helped take to that next stage. And I think that we would benefit, if we were to do something again or take it to a next stage, we would benefit from having consultants who are more futurists and could be future thinking. But then what I saw is a lot of excitement, and then, things kind of slow down, and then people don't hear anything, and then like one of the last meetings, there was an overwhelming proportion of the people who didn't want any changes, didn't want And it was all in the air of, what about our children, what about our schools? We don't want other people coming into this community. And that, I think, is really unfortunate. I think that the team was ultimately like bullied into a decision that is slimmed down of some of those big ideas that the team had started to pull together. And so where I'm concerned about just doing it again is, how do you engage enough people so that you're having like a good representation? Because I don't think that some of those louder voices at the end were necessarily representative of all of Edina. If that's the case, then like, yes, that's the plan that we should go forward with. But I don't think that that's the case. And so how do you, and this goes to all of the discussions we have, right? How do you engage people, and how do you get people to have their opinions and share their opinions? It's hard, and would like to not do it while we're trying to also do the rest of the comprehensive plan.
That's a good point.
So I don't know what the right answer is, but I would be hesitant to either punt it and say like, try again in a couple of years. I would probably like to see the number 2 of direct staff to make changes to the existing plan, bring it from where it is now to a little bit more specificity with a big idea.
Can you go back to that one so we can see what,
Yeah, it's right here.
well, number 2 here?
Yeah, number 2 here.
Not on the
No,
drawings.
yeah, correct. So take what we have, make it more specific, bring some more visualization, either work with a futurist or not, but something that is where we can work to get data, like what will careers of the future be, and how can we think, I'll use the STEM school idea, right? Like, where are those ideas that really align to our values of the city, so that you get people excited about what this area can be?
I just think what we're talking about is just so different from where we are.
Yes.
And so to me, we could do 2. And I had lots of ideas on what I think should be in there. But it's so different from where they are that I would actually be uncomfortable from a community standpoint if it's that different from what the original team recommended. And so part of that is me wanting to go back. And maybe what we do is kind of a little bit of, I don't know, maybe it's a hybrid or not, but to your point, kind of paint that future vision and go back and then reinsert into the current process at a certain point and say, all right, guys, look at this, and then go from there forward to come forward with a recommendation. But we have to do more than just public hearings. Right? To me, what you're describing is akin to us saying we need transportation. People say, yep, let's get a car, and we recommend an SUV or a pickup truck. And if we do that, I think we gotta go back and say, yeah, we think you really ought to do a pickup truck. Here's the reasons why, and let them start from that point rather than going all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, and I think in that analogy, I'm like, does it have to be a car?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
But
the whole point.
I think
Right.
that's just it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that there are some really cool ideas
You
of,
can use electric bike or a regular bike.
Yeah.
or is there some type of transit that were to connect areas of Grandview or what have you? I think
Yeah,
that
I agree with all that.
there's some really cool stuff you can do.
The concern staff would have if you choose the number 2 is our staff capacity, as we're doing the small area plans and other planning commission work plan, we would have, this would be tough to take that on in addition to that.
Sure.
So I feel conflicted because I get Julie's argument, it was the same one I had before, that I like having a balanced tax base, or a more balanced tax base, and the commercial industrial neighborhood allows you to do that. I'm gonna ask you a question. So, if we park this for just through the legislative session, to see what they do with this House File 4009,
Yeah.
you guys all know about this?
Yeah.
No?
Well, Stephanie does. This is creation of Larry Kraft up in St. Louis Park, and who's the other?
Steve Elkins.
No, it's not Elkins.
It's not Elkins.
Howard?
Mike
Mike
Howard.
Howard? Oh,
no,
Steve Nash, yeah,
Not
from.
Nash, either Jim Nash.
Jim
Jim
Nash.
Nash, that's right. Right, Steve.
How, well, it is Kraft, Howard, Nash, and Elkins.
Yeah.
So this bill says that you have to allow multifamily construction, residential development in a commercial industrial zone. And so as a permitted use. So just think about, we just had that conversation up on Londonderry. There would be no discussion, this bill passes, and there's other elements of it too. If it's an affordable housing project, there's no public hearing. It's all administrative.
No design standards.
Yeah. If you're within a
Height up to
certain distance
150
of a transit stop, you get to, what, triple the density and triple the height for an affordable housing project. ADUs mandated, doesn't say what kind of ADUs. So there's just a lot packed in here that cities are trying to figure out, us included at the MLC. But it made me think that something's gonna pass because there's so much pressure around around housing affordability. We all know that. You know, it's a global problem. We've been talking about it for several years and trying to do our part. So, could we just hold off on this as one possibility for a few months until we see what happens in the legislature and how that impacts us?
Yeah, we're not up against any time frame here.
I thought Kate raised a really interesting idea, and that was, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, the first time we thought that the library site was going to be redeveloped, we took a plan to the MICD, that design consortium that happened to be in Brooklyn. We met in Brooklyn. But it's caused me to think about, we don't have that kind of imagination amongst the cadre of people that we've hired.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to think about what could be and dream about what might be over there, you'd almost want to go big on it and look for somebody that could really help you, and don't confine it to a local search.
Yeah.
But maybe even MICD would, because what they did there with us was they gathered up, had a company called Big, which is Bjorn Ingvall's group. They did Google headquarters, and they've done all kinds of they did, I think, two, one of the World Trade Center buildings, replacement World Trade Center buildings. So we're in this big architectural facility, and they had maybe 10 architects there, and landscape architects. So look at your project and analyze it and tell you how to make it better. You know, if you could bring a group like that, and they do that remote work. You know, in the past, they've come into cities and said, okay, you got the nub of a good idea here, but here's the way you really make it blossom and become what you want to see in terms of your vision, which Edina's always been great at, is visioning, but they want the town to look like 20, 30, 40 years from now. That's a pretty intriguing possibility. But I'm still harkening back to Julie's argument too about, well, don't we want to maintain a balanced tax base? So,
I'm only talking about a very small little part of the plan. I'm just talking about protecting that Olms cul-de-sac.
that's what you're talking. You're not talking about the whole 400 acres?
No, I'm just
Well, I think
talking,
you were talking about the whole 400
no,
acres.
I was just talking about that little
Oh,
I'm
I thought you
talking
were
about
using that as an example.
4 parcels or 5.
Okay. All right,
That's,
fair enough.
that's all I want. It's not a huge ask.
That makes the,
Why?
Because, it is,
I actually think it's a perfect spot for housing, frankly.
I know, you and I, okay, but here's the problem. If you,
Can you point at it, George?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
me,
I've been
right?
quite a few times with the owners
Okay,
of one of
here's-
those buildings.
here's where the condo exists, and then you've got the stream, and you've got all these trees.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about switching these, so go ahead, make these purple, don't do these. And the reason why is we're never gonna get access out on 77th. We're not gonna get it.
70th, you mean?
Or whatever, 70th, sorry. We're not gonna, be, and this is, you know, the pathway guarded there, so all you have is the cul-de-sac. And so it makes it more of a burden for the existing industrial that's there. And I also think,
There's only one other building there, too. I mean, there's two there now, and if they were gone, there would only be one at the entrance.
Yeah.
and so, but,
And then you could take that swampy land and make it into a park.
no, but it's also compromised because it is low-lying. And so why not just allow it to stay? So I'm just concerned about 5 parcels.
Well, and I guess that's
You
what I'm
know?
trying to understand, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about the big picture, the big
Right.
idea, and I'm
Right.
curious about the fixation on 5 parcels, because I would also challenge some of those underlying beliefs that we could never connect onto 70th. Right? Like, if we connected onto 70th,
It's
would
a
that?
funny,
It's really,
you
I
know.
run over
And then
there all
you're
the
right,
time.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
I run over there, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
but you're
But
also.
what we're talking about
Yeah.
is a big idea and potentially evolving this in a big way. And so I don't want, you know, oh, there's no other way to get out of there, we're stuck, it has to be industrial forever, to lock us into a decision. That, I'm just trying to understand why those 5 sites, when there's a lot of this district, the 380 acres of this district, that, you know, you could have thoughts and opinions on.
Right, but, and I do have thoughts and opinions on those, but I feel like it's important because of the way it is being used, and it's a cul-de-sac, and it's really hard to get to, and you're right, maybe, who knows, you know, the land rises, whatever, and I, you know, when I think about the decisions that we're making, I think it's important to consider the long-term ramifications, but I feel like the way the future land use office residential has been, the way I've seen it being used, is not the way that it is presented. It's rarely used in a mixed-use kind of way because our economy doesn't support that right now. And so it ends up being switched right away to purely residential. And I'm just concerned because of the infrastructure, because of the use, you've got industrial use there, and I think it makes it hard. And the statements that existing industrial tenants had, or owners had, about traffic coming into the area and all of that. And this is in an area that I think, you know, it makes sense to kind of view it as working well if it continued to function the way it's functioning now. And I'm not being that articulate, anyhow, but those are the parcels that I'm concerned about.
The other thing I thought, just I would add on to what James and Carolyn were talking about in terms of what does work look like in the future? It's a really interesting question, you know, as part of the big picture thing, because we're not going to be a pharmaceutical manufacturing location or making parts for Boeing, you know, back in there, but it could be something tech related, and its proximity to the airport is really interesting. So you think about what could be there that gives people access to the airport. If they have high valued goods, they've got to get out and get overseas overnight, like a medical device manufacturer. You're a lot better off being in Edina than you are in Plymouth, trying to get to the airport to get the product overseas to Singapore for open heart surgery the next day. So there's all kinds of possibilities that could unfold there in terms of what work looks like, and maybe there are people out there that can help you figure that out and build something that they will come to.
So,
You got the right kind of technology infrastructure in there to entice people in.
I've got
We all
two,
work from home.
I've got 2 questions. One is, do we have a breakdown of the jobs between commercial and industrial in this area? Because it says 4,000 to 7,000 jobs in the area, that's a broad range. And I'm just curious, because to me, having these blocks is sort of a mental block as well. So we've got the commercial E and the commercial F, and then the industrial C and D. And to me, that just seems limiting, that if we're gonna have, you know, a job of the future might be, you know, how, does it need to be broken down between commercial and industrial? Can't it just be jobs? So that's my second question, is a zoning question. So the first is a fact, and the second is a zoning.
So not sure what we have for job breakdown, but the industrial zoning district allows office uses. So really, there's a blend between the O and the I.
And you
You
never
can't really, yeah, you can't really tell one from the other.
So the whole thing could be industrial and still embrace the offices that are
The
there.
office would be allowed, yeah.
Yeah,
So the areas that are office though, it's just office.
yeah.
It doesn't allow for some of those industrial type of uses.
Yes, to me, it'd be better just have everything be industrial and then have a model where housing could be part of industrial. In Kate's model, where, you know, maybe the buildings are mixed, but.
The building a block south of Public Works is a strip building. And at least one of those companies in there is a Japanese company.
Yep.
And they have office manufacturing right there. It's like office warehouse combo, you know?
Yeah.
In fact, they got all three, because they warehouse the stuff that they make there. So there's that going on too, which is more what you're thinking about.
I think, so I agree with what Kate has said. I'm probably gonna repackage it. And because I think she's right. I think we are making decisions on this parcel within the current paradigm. And what she's saying is, we shouldn't do that. And I actually agree with that. And so, but I think in order for us to get something different there, like, we have to shift the paradigm. Like, we have to say, you know what? We want to build the first smart city in the region, and we want to enable the tech economy in this space. And that also means we have to have mixed use. Let's find the right people to help us design that, and that's what we're going to move forward with over the next 15 years. That's what we're going to make this place.
Let's make it carbon neutral too.
Yeah, right. Like, that's the way you would do that. But today, we're making these decisions within our current paradigm, and we're just shifting it a little bit.
So, I'm not sure that what I'm thinking, I don't know how to qualify it, except that I like the idea of this being a premier jobs place. And what jobs mean, I don't know. So when I say here smart city, I'm thinking, you know, mixed uses and everything, but there are a lot of jobs in this area. I'd like to see more. And I'm afraid, sort of to what Julie's saying, is if we just open it up, that it would be nothing but shops and housing. And I don't want this to be shops and housing. I don't want this to be Southdale too. I want this to be Cahill, and I want it to be, you know, high-paying jobs and not retail. And so that's my worry, is that if we say, you know, live, work, and play, or whatever, all in one place, it's gonna be retail and housing. And we have lots of retail in Edina already, and we have housing. I'm happy with housing if we can have these high-paying jobs, and that's what I'm really afraid of losing. So that's where I'm coming from.
And I'm just saying, we set whatever the paradigm is.
Yeah.
We frame that.
Yeah.
And so we frame it for this blue ocean idea, and then that's what you go design for. The flip side of that is, I don't know that that's where the electorate is either. And so we've tried to do that a couple times. Like, I thought the lid, oh, I get that idea. You're trying to join the East and West. We're hearing that now. It's a horrible idea to put a tunnel under France and build a pavilion. Well, no, I think it's a great idea. So those kinds of ideas, I don't know if we're ready for something like this, because it would be the only one in the region. if we did that. And I do think that's the direction we're going.
I think that's where I would like to have a partner that helps us with the messaging.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we have a great communications department. That's not exactly what this is though, right? Like it almost needs a marketing campaign
For sure.
and buy-in and all of that, because where I go back to based on what you said is with some of these projects, we hear from a handful of people that really don't like it.
Yeah.
But do people who like it not write in because they think we're gonna do it anyway and therefore we don't need their opinions? Or do they not even know about it? Or how can we drive more of that dialogue? And so I think whatever we do here, that has to be a part of our strategy.
And I could say, I just don't know if that's where the electorate
Yeah.
is yet. But we can certainly find that out. Yeah. But I think it's the right direction to go, first of all. That doesn't answer your question. Absolutely.
The thing about, I don't mind the mix of uses, I'm with you, I don't like the idea of retail and a lot of housing, maybe some housing. But to me, you gotta really be careful when you start mixing housing in with commercial, industrial, or even a smart city concept. Now, I say that thinking, well, wait a minute, in Seattle, I think, Amazon is all over downtown Seattle. And there are people living in neighborhoods real close by where they walk to work. So if it's tech oriented, then maybe it's not as big a deal, but I remember we talked about putting housing above Super Target when that got redone. And Gordon Hughes was still around and he said, you want to create an immediate constituency that'll drive Target nuts, put housing over the top of their store and let the people start calling about the freezer noise and the trucks backing up all night. So you just got to be careful about where you put the housing.
But that maybe would have been really cool. I mean, thinking about how that's now just one very, very long building along the investment that we've put into that, if there would be townhouses there, I think that would have been really cool. Or the lid, right? There are a lot of ideas that
So,
we don't get to test.
for staff perspective, if we table this and spend some time trying to find a futurist, how does that fit into your scheduling?
This year is difficult, just given that work plan, but at 2025, kind of as a kickoff into the comprehensive plan, that could be the, using this document as a springboard, whether it's approved or not, we can still, it's still there.
What if we use this interim time to start looking for those partners that are potentially out there?
Seeking grants.
They might be in New York, they might be in London. But I think it would be, all of us can get online and start looking at smart city concepts around the globe. So I think, yeah, Kate's onto something there.
Yeah. And someone who might have experience with a multitude of property owners, that's always the challenge. You might get some that are on board with it, but someone to stay just as is. Dow Chemical being a big player.
I just do want to caution though, the kind of part of our discussion tonight is workload management, right? Because we could put this off, we can shove it into the future a little bit, but maybe not all the way to the comp plan. But we do want to make sure we have enough time, energy, money to do a good job at like Lincoln and Londonderry. That's a big one.
Is there grant money out there for something like this?
Well, we did get 50,000 for just this project, so there's always money sources that we can look into.
I wonder if Deed is doing anything like that, sort of jobs of the future kind of thing.
But even if we contract it out, that doesn't completely remove workload from this department.
Right,
So,
I'm just saying, if we table it now, go with option 3, we can spend the interim at least shopping for people who have ideas. That's not public meetings and actually sitting down, paper and pencil, but it is who would, 10 potential partners be, or 5 potential partners? So a little bit of shopping, and then, maybe we need to put out an RFP, maybe we need to do some grant writing. We do that not this year, but next year, but just to get, an afternoon's worth of Google searches, essentially.
Or later this year, we could kick off some type of RFP.
It's not just resources you're searching for, a better consultant / partner. You're also looking at other cities that maybe have already done this somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think Toronto comes to mind. I think they've done some work around this concept.
But that's a good thing to keep in mind for the Lincoln, Londonderry, small area plan, looking for a partner that can be more on, in terms of what we're really looking for. The other thing, I see the logic of tabling it until the legislature session ends, but also there could be changes to the Dan patch line, and that could, add another
Probably
element
not in
as
the near
well.
future, though.
Okay.
The tech infrastructure idea, I was just thinking about maybe 10, 12 years ago, Chattanooga, they put in ultra high-speed internet all over town, and it transformed their town. All of a sudden it went from some sleepy, mid-sized city into, they attracted all kinds of business that came in there. They wanted that speed. You maybe knew about that. Anyway.
The only thing I would add is I would not want to go through all of this work and end up with a plan that we don't have the support of the council to move forward with. And so I think backing up and saying, and this is probably just us doing some work to shape what we think that view should be as a current council, to make sure we're giving good direction in terms of what we want, so that you don't run off at some point and then come back with something that you end up with another 2 or 3 votes, because you need a super majority to move forward. So whatever process we need to do that precedes some of the stuff that we just talked about, I think it warrants us taking the time to do that.
That is one benefit, though, too, of waiting to start at least until the end of this year, early next year, is then who the council is for the next 2 years.
Well, I don't think we wait for the next council either, but that's fair. Yeah.
I'll talk to MICD, see what they think about it. Just, did I tell you guys, I was on a webinar for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I think it was last week or the week before, and it was arts.
Yeah.
The role of art in mental health. And they had, MICD was sponsoring it, and they had a woman from Johns Hopkins who talked about the role of arts in mental health, but they switched to talking about it in the context of buildings. And then there was a woman architect from Perkins and Will. I don't know what office she was on for Perkins and Will, but she had done an exhaustive amount of study around firehouses. And so she started listing off all these elements you need to make sure that health is embodied in public buildings in particular. And so she said there was a 2018 study that showed more firefighters died by suicide than on the job. For women firefighters, there was a 2021 study that showed 22% of women firefighters have miscarriages, which is way above the national average. So she said, here's the elements that we determined were really important: was air quality, sleep, light, mental health, and nature. And so the design implications for firehouses, and I sent this to Scott and over to Andrew, we're on the mark on all of them. Was celebrate the healing power of the kitchen.
Oh, I
So
love it.
big kitchen, separate containments from people. Separate containments, or contaminants, I think is what they meant, contaminants. Protect sleep from noise, support efficient paths for faster response, create space for privacy, build the inclusive environment you want to see. Anyway, those were some of the things they talked about. I thought, wow, there's all kinds of research out there that could benefit us.
Yeah. And this
Having
site
conversation.
is so perfect for that, with all the water that's there and the creek and everything. This could be just an incredible place to work. It's just, the potential is really awesome. It's a beautiful piece of land.
So I misinterpreted what Member Agnew was saying in waiting. Where I was going is we got a retreat coming up. So I don't disagree. Yeah, we could wait until January of next year to talk about what that vision should be. But I was thinking we've got a retreat coming up in April. That could be a topic for us to talk about that. And then maybe you don't kick anything off until you have the council set for the next 2 years.
So you're talking about the Cahill plan?
I am talking about, yes, I'm talking about this big idea for what the Cahill area could be. So I'm being careful in how I say that, which is not this plan. But just shaping that paradigm that we think we'd like to give to as direction to the work group to then go finalize the Cahill plan. That's better said.
Does this help you guys?
Yes.
Well, in terms of the
Take some
timing.
pressure off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the watershed in there? Like, what is the creek?
It's all water.
Is it
Is
like
Got
Minnehaha?
your-
What?
In
It's
terms
my
of the
mile.
planning,
Yeah, okay.
where it fits within some
And there's a
large chunks of
a
workload.
boardwalk
it fits.
area.
That fits okay.
Okay.
And it's so cool, look, the little industrial place that is right by there right now has a little picnic table by it, you know, and
It's worth going down to Ohms Lane and walking around down there. Sort of go from Ohms Lane down to the Public Works Building and back. It's a nice walk. See, there's the water. Water, water, water.
It's a little hard to see.
That wouldn't be hard to create a lot of nice water features.
Yeah, it could be so beautiful.
And that even was a part of some of the imagery that came out early in the district plan
Yeah.
meetings, yeah.
no, and some of the, owners are doing really great landscaping in the industrial zone, very beautiful.
And the nut that came out of it was that the best way to manage the stormwater is through district management, but that redevelopment happens on a parcel by parcel basis. So that's the nut that has to be cracked as far as I'm concerned with the water.
Yep.
It could be so beautiful.
There's a lot of nice businesses down there now. A lot of nice, you've done
It is
a pretty
beautiful.
good
There's
job
parts
of
that are
upgrading buildings.
With the public art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, public art.
I'm surprised we went for a walk down there. Lots of the lots have public art. I don't know if that was part of the zoning code at one point or.
A lot of them are just doing it on their own.
That's cool. Yeah.
So where are you on this, as long as we're talking small area plans, where are you on?
Yeah,
Brent Road.
We got our proposals from the consultants. So we are interviewing 3 consultants next week. And then the working group applications are due Friday. So the planning, the 3 co-chairs will be reviewing those, and at their second meeting in March, they'll be confirming the working group members. And then we'll get started hopefully in April.
Are we allowed to see the proposals?
Yeah, they are available.
I'd love to see them.
Yeah, we'd love to see them.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's all we got for you tonight.
Wow,
Alrighty then.
well, it's exciting stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
Took a
What's the name of it?
Shoestop promenade. You took an old Air Force base,
When you guys do the small area plan?
Yes.
redeveloped it into water, they consolidated water, and then all of this different housing pieces around it.
Turn, because people didn't want change.
What's the name of the farm you were talking about?
This is the water, the
YCD?
water is large, but it's really shallow. It's like a foot deep, but it's beautiful.
Planning commissions.
I mean, that looks like a legitimate lake, right? It's only
Yeah, Kim,
2 feet deep, maybe?
Built out when I,
Mr. Mayor?
so a lot of what you've shown.
I
is
like
new.
that, that's a
Isn't it?
good vision.
Clerk
Lots of
Allison.
greenery.
Yeah.
Okay, we stand adjourned.